everyone, and welcome to the LTH product briefing. I'm delighted today to be joined by Jorn Vannisacker, the CEO and co-founder of Henchman. Welcome, Jorn.
Hey, Nikki. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, Jorn, tell us a little bit about the background of Henchman and how it came to be founded.
Yeah, excellent. So we're three co-founders, one technical, two commercial. So Gilles and I, the co-CEOs, we know each other for about 15 years, more than that, actually. We've been in technology for 10 years. Our previous company was an HR tech company, which we then later sold. And it was actually during that earn-out period, Gilles had an idea where he had to fill in a lot of RFPs. And he was like, oh, we're getting in new questions. Where did we give those answers in the past? Looking for those RFP answers. Where afterwards we had a lunch session with the lawyers that assisted us in the acquisition. And they said, guys, if you solve this, like this is what we do on a daily basis, looking for precedents, something we've done in the past, like you have gold. So it was actually on that day that we pivoted the idea and we moved into the legal tech world. It was in summer of 2020 where we really put our first prototype in the hands of lawyers, where it became super clear that there was a problem solution fit. And we really started developing a product.
Right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yes, indeed.
And what is the core problem that Henchman solves for lawyers?
So Henchman is really built and designed for lawyers that draft and negotiate complex contracts. When these type of lawyers draft contracts, it's basically two challenges that Henchman is designed to overcome. So when they draft contracts, they tend to scroll and look for clauses they've written in the past in numerous folders, numerous contracts. And of course, if that doesn't work, they will start bothering their colleague that has to go through that same process again. It's a very recognizable frustration for our target audience. And then, of course, secondly, on a more organizational level, legal teams, law firms, they sit on a huge pile of data, huge amount of contracts, and they know nothing about it. We call it the sleeping gold, whereas they have no clue which clause appears most in which contract type, or which of those clauses contains a monetary threshold. And that's really where the opportunity lies, in making that data accessible and that knowledge accessible.
Interesting. So document automation is usually talked about in terms of efficiency of drafting, but what you're saying is there's also another significant return on investment, which is in identifying key aspects of clauses or unlocking knowledge effectively.
From the get-go, it was super important that Henchman had to be plug and play. Not from a marketing perspective, but genuinely, we connect to the document management system. We recognize what are contracts, what are not, and then we process out the clauses and definitions, and we make those accessible within your current workflow, which is Word or Outlook or Teams.
Really interesting, Jorn. Can we have a look at Henchman in action?
Of course we can. So this is Henchman. So this is a Word add-in. So there's three things you can do with Henchman. So first of all, you can search for precedents, snap for something specific you have in mind. You can browse what your coworkers have written in the past. Secondly, you can review for variations. You can benchmark almost to what's common in your data set. And then lastly, you can enrich your own clauses or your colleagues' clauses with large language models or GPT-3, which we actually integrated early Jan this year. Let's say here, material adverse effect. I want to see what we've written in our database. Here you immediately see we make suggestions. This is not based on a taxonomy. This is really based on what we've processed from your database, right? So if it's not in your database, it won't get suggested. So let's say here you have material adverse effect. Of course, this is a sales demo. There's about 240 contracts attached to the sales demo. In reality, this will be a lot more, and it will be ranked based on commonality, will be ranked based on the type of contract you're working in and whatnot. So it's very smart ranking that we attach to it. You could specify only want to see definitions, right? And you can, make filters as to, for instance, the file name contains, the clause contains certain details, or let's say, my senior partner is called Benedict. I only want to see clauses from contracts that have been created by Benedict. And so that's kind of how you can narrow down your searches.
And Jorn, can I just ask, with the filters, does this assume that there are metadata tags that have been applied to the content or the backend, or is it automatically able to filter content because it picks up all of these details about the clauses and the underlying document documents automatically.
Exactly. We take the metadata from the document management system, right? And today that is iManage, NetDocument, SharePoint, you name it. And we integrate with those, and we take that metadata into Henchman. And it's even that much that we take the permissions, we take them over automatically from the document management system, so that it is truly a plug and play experience for our customers.
And when you say they take on the permissions, so if something was secure to only one person or one matter team in the document management system, that permission or security is then honored in Henchman as well?
Exactly.
That's great.
And then, to go further into the first use case, which is the search, right? So here you get to see all the material adverse effect definitions we found in your database. And immediately you see what file it comes from, but also how common this is. And so from the 15 defined terms we found in your database, 4 of them are exactly like this. So this represents 27% of your database, or this is an outlier. And so make sure you know what you're doing when you choose it. When you open up this definition, you can easily toggle through it. And then of course you see here the commonality, but also you can open the contract for more context, right? So if you want to use other definitions or clauses, you can save it to a list, which is basically bookmarking a definition or a clause. Could be your own private bookmarks or lists, or within the whole firm or within your own team.
And where is that little buyer-friendly tag coming from?
I'm glad you asked. So you can copy the full clause, and then here, this brings us to the metadata I mentioned. So here you have the metadata. This is created by, last edited, but you can add labels, right? So these can be made by your knowledge team, or you can even, if you have the permissions, create your own label. It's almost as easy as using Trello, as you can see, right?
The knowledge team or the firm could decide whether you want to use it so that only administrators have permission to add labels, or whether all users have permission to add labels.
Yeah, so today it's something that's definitely in the pipeline for the coming months. So today you can see who created the label, for instance, so that also validates, the label itself. But of course, there's also going to be auto labeling so that we can apply bulk labeling, but that's something that I can't disclose yet, but we're happy to give more insights on that roadmap in a private demo for whoever's interested.
And you can point Henchman at any database. I mean, presumably you could point it at the whole document management system, or if you wanted to point it only at a curated knowledge base, you could do that as well.
Yes, you could even, connect it to multiple databases. But in practice, we noticed that the big firms always have one database, and then the smaller firms tend to have multiple databases, but that's all possible. The second use case is reviewing. So Henchman allows you to review, let's say that you want to compare this materially adverse effect definition to this one, then you can easily drag and drop it. It shows you immediately, what the difference is between this clause and this clause or definition. And you can toggle and you can see, well, in this case, the materially or to the company is added, or this is an entire different definition. So in that case, let's say that you like this monetary threshold that's added. So you just select it and you paste it, and it takes over the formatting of your original document. And then, of course, in the last case, it's the enriching of your own contract database, of your own clauses and definitions. So let's say you want to find a liability clause. You like this one, you like it a lot actually, but it has to be plural. It says a party. Well, then you firestart your AI clause assistant, wherein you have 3 options. You can translate, smart replace, or help me. And in this case, I want to make this plural. I want to say, it's a party, a party, smart replace, and you replace it with the parties, let's say. Well, in this case, GPT-3 does its thing, and it will start to process this, and it gives you instantly, it recognized all the party and it changes the parties, but it also changes the grammar.
Oh, that's really cool.
This is great. It changes your life. It makes it so much easier. And then, of course, in this case, help me write. Let's say that you wanted to add a liability cap of 10 millions to say, right? Well, then GPT will help you a bit as well. It will actually start to see where can we include that liability cap to inspire you in a a sense, right? And it will give you three options. So, in this case, it gives you that or that or that. So you can say, all right, let's continue with this text. Boom, it's added that. And of course, lastly, let's say it's a German contact or a client that you have, then it can, in the last phase, translate that, or, you can use those phases as you want, of course.
This is
But
really
that's
cool. Jorn, this is GPT 3 or 3.5 that you're using?
Yeah, GPT 3.5 indeed.
It's such a nice targeted use case for it. I can see because it's very secure. You really have gates around it, but you're using it in a way that's genuinely helpful to the user in their workflow.
Exactly. And what our customers love about this use case is because it's their own data that they enrich. And it's not just something that GPT has spit out and you feel very insecure about using because of the obvious reasons. And there's going to be much more in the pipeline as well.
That's fantastic. I do have another question just because of my background in knowledge management. I'm curious to know about things like taxonomies, and you had mentioned previously the ability to add things to a list. Is it possible for knowledge managers, for example, to set up lists of clauses for particular practice groups or for the firm as a whole, and to manage taxonomies through Henchman?
Yeah, indeed. So that's definitely, something that we're working on with the product team, and we're exploring. The way we like to think of Henchman and the role of knowledge managers is that knowledge should be dynamic. It shouldn't be something that's static and that's outdated from the day you've created it, the day after you've created it, right? So working around or building that product that can support a dynamic knowledge management way of working is what we strive for. And one of the things, the analogies that I like to use is like, let's think of Google Ads, right? I think you perform a search, you get suggestions, and then Google gives you advertising on top of that. The role of a knowledge manager should be someone that could determine, well, what are the ads that appear if they look for a liability clause in a specific use case or for a specific contract type. So in that case, that pops up at the top, like this is what we believe as a firm we should be using in these cases.
That's great. Jorn, thank you so much for showing us Henchman and for being with us today. For everyone watching, thank you for joining the LTH product briefing.
Thank you very much.